بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون والذين هم للزكاة فاعلون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون والذين هم للزكاة فاعلون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون والذين هم على صلواتهم يحافظون أولئك هم الوارثون أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون. خالدون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, Brother Mustafa, for that beautiful recitation. Just before we begin, a few announcements. In the dining hall, which is when you leave, as you exit to the right, we'll be having refreshments and pizza afterwards, so stick around. We're also having a game night, so please do stick around after the program. Next week, we'll be having the topic on the ideal marriage, Imam Ali and Sayyidah Fatima by Hajj al-Mughniya. So, at the same time. Next week, Friday night at 8 p.m. All right, if you can all take out your phones. Go to Safari, Google, Firefox, whatever you have. Internet Explorer. Type in your web browser Kahoot.it. That's Kahoot.it. So the website is Kahoot, Kahoot.it, IT. So hopefully you've all entered into Safari, click Kahoot.it. So there should be a pin over there. It'll ask you to enter it. Once you enter it, you're logged into the game. Keep your phones active. Don't let it shut off. Otherwise, you'll be disconnected from the game. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin in the name of the Almighty God, the Compassionate, the Merciful, the one who has created everything in utmost perfection. And may the peace and blessings of the Almighty God be upon His pure and beloved Messenger, the peak of His creation, the symbol of humanity, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And his immaculate progeny of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, especially the leader of our time, the awaited Savior, Al-Imam Al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to welcome you all to this workshop and interactive discussion that we'll have tonight on a very, very important topic that affects us all, and that's marriage. How to be ready for marriage, how to find the right spouse, all of these dimensions that we are all concerned about and some of us struggle with. So we'd like to make this as interactive as possible, inshallah. Now, as you know, marriage is one of the most important decisions you'll make in your life. Because marriage is an aspect of your life that's lifelong. It's not something that you can put to the side when you're not okay with it. Sometimes you may have an activity or a hobby, and then one day you're not interested in that activity or hobby. You can put it on the side for a while. No big deal. It's not like your job where if you're unhappy with your job, hey, let me look for another job. That's not how marriage works. The breakup of a family is one of the most devastating experiences a human being can have. So it's a very, very critical part of our lives. And it's very important for us to try to make our marriages as successful as we can, because a lot of marriages do fail. But really we can control that. Whether our marriages fail or succeed, it depends on how we interact with the institution of marriage, how we prepare ourselves. The choices that you'll be making now before you're married will determine whether you'll have a successful marriage, inshallah, or, God forbid, a failed marriage. You know, none of us wants to be like that British officer, immigration officer. A few years ago, you know what a British officer did? Basically, his wife went to Pakistan, and then when she wanted to fly back to the UK, at the airport in Pakistan, they told her, you're on the terrorist list. She's like, what do you mean I'm on the terrorist list? I'm not. I'm a decent British citizen. I've never done anything wrong. My husband is an immigration officer. What are you talking about? So you know what she did? She called her husband. She told him, look, they've put me on this terrorist watch list. Now you're an immigration officer, you can get me out. He's like, wow, this is very disturbing. I'll work on it. Well, he started working on it. You know how long it took? 3 years she was stuck in Pakistan. When after 3 years, one day, the British government wanted to give her husband a promotion. And because they wanted to give him a promotion, they did a background check on him and his family, and they realized his wife was on a terrorist watch list. So they went to him, they're like, do you know your wife is on a terrorist watch list? He's like, yeah, I've been working on it, it's been 3 years. They're like, but how did that happen? They investigated it, and they realized he was the one who put her on that watch list to get rid of her. And then he told the news, those 3 years were the best years of my life. Away from my wife and all the trouble that she gives me. None of us wants to have a marriage like that. Now, by the way, the British government, they fired him from his job for doing something like that. But imagine what kind of marriage this guy was having, such that he was willing to do something so heinous and disgusting like that to his wife. That's when a marriage goes bad. And none of us want that, inshallah. So we have to be in the proper mindset, And we need to make the right choices so we avoid, inshallah, a situation like that. Now, yeah, what I described is a little bit extreme. But sometimes in the community, you see worse scenarios, brothers and sisters. So inshallah, with the proper mindset, we will avoid all of that. Now, the first part of our discussion, and hopefully all of you have logged on to Kahoot, if I pronounced it correctly. We'll try to make this interactive. So the first part of our discussion tonight is to try to figure out if we're ready or not for marriage. A lot of our youth ask this question. Sayyid, am I ready for marriage or not? How do I know? What are the criteria for me to know that I am ready for marriage or not? What factors are involved? So let's now display the first question about being ready for marriage. Can we have that on the projection? So choose the answer that you feel is the most appropriate. How do I know I'm ready for marriage? So I'll read the responses if you don't know. The red one is, I'm tall enough. I'm at least 5'6". The blue one is, when I've earned my college degree, then I know I'm ready. The yellow one is when every sheikh and sayyid asks me, are you married? Are you married yet? Then I know I'm ready. And the last one, I've worked hard now. Now it's time for me to be served. So that's when I will go into a marriage. Make your selection. How many seconds do we have? What's that? No. Go back to that first question. Can we go back to the first question? I think somebody hacked us tonight. Do we need to restart? Sorry about that. So please log in. Use the same PIN, or is it a different PIN? Same PIN, 779-828. Okay, we have everyone? Everyone's logged in? 55, 56. What was the figure the first time? 40? No, I think we had more than 40. Okay, now make your selection. We should have almost 60 answers. Eight seconds left. If you haven't made your selection, make it now. Okay. So most of you have said, when I've earned my college degree. Why is there a check next to the yellow one? That's the one that won? But that only has 22 responses. Oh, that's the correct answer. Okay, alhamdulillah. Somebody's choosing answers for us tonight. But seriously, on a serious note, how do we know we're ready for marriage? See, most of you chose when I've earned my college degree. When we think about the appropriate time to get married, is it a particular age group that I should look at? Is it an achievement that I should look at, like earning a degree or establishing a career? Let me hear some responses from you. How do you know that you're ready for marriage? Yes, sister. When you're educated in your religion. But why? Why is being educated in your religion an important factor in your opinion? Okay, so the sister is saying, when you're educated in your religion, you know why you're getting married. That's a very good point. Yes, sister. So once you're content with yourself, you're confident, you know, inshallah, you have the proper faith, the proper intentions, and you've also managed to protect yourself from bad habits, then you can tell yourself, okay, now I'm ready for marriage. You know how some people look at it? Especially some of the youth or some of the brothers. They know they have bad habits, a bad lifestyle. They're like, you know what? When I get married, marriage is going to fix my lifestyle for me. Right? Have you heard that? Is this a dangerous line of thinking? Or you think that's pretty reasonable? You know, if I get married, Allah will miraculously just save me from my habits. What do you say, guys? What do you say? It's not possible. Why? If you don't have the initiative coming from you to change, don't expect marriage to miraculously save you. In fact, if you go into a marriage and you're not willing to fix your habits now, you're going to make your spouse a victim. You think your spouse is interested in starting, you know, his or her life with you when you have these habits and you expect your spouse to somehow miraculously fix those habits for you? So that's a very good point. Once you protect yourself from certain habits, from a negative lifestyle, then think about marriage. Otherwise, you're going to do your spouse an injustice. Yes, sister. So after college, you become disciplined. And you're also more financially stable because now you can get a job with a degree. So once you've finished your education, then you're ready for marriage. Who disagrees or agrees with that? Do you all agree that you must finish your college education, then you'll be ready for marriage? Yes, brother.
No, I disagree, because you're in a college education to learn to be a self-learned person. So the other degrees means nothing at that point.
So you could be a self-learned person, and why is it that you need to finish your college degree for you to be ready for marriage? That's a very valid point, brother. You know, we have this mentality in our society that you should finish your education, establish your career, then get married. And by the way, our parents have that mentality, right? Even if we don't, they do. It's like a given that you have to finish your education and, you know, be very financially stable for you to be ready for marriage. But that's not always the case. Brothers and sisters, while, you know, the sister said that education does give you some discipline, but does education guarantee that you're going to be a good spouse? I know people with PhDs, 2 PhDs. And if you only see how they behave in their household. A college education does not make you a decent human being, does not make you a good spouse. So don't see that as a fundamental criterion. In fact, you could be seeking your education and you're mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you get married while seeking education. Why not? This is something that we should be open to. Maybe parents aren't that open to it. But once you get married in this critical stage as you're developing yourself, that's very healthy to develop your spirituality, yourself, your personality with your spouse. That creates a bond. See, people whom you struggle with in life, they stay close friends to you. I know people who become best friends in life after some sort of tragic incident happened to them. They maybe were traveling, they got lost somewhere, something happened to them, a life-threatening situation, and they maybe spent like a day or two with each other. But then once they came out of that tragedy, out of that difficulty, they became best friends for life. Why? Because they realized that in moments of difficulty, this person stood by my side. I saw the humanity in that person. And sometimes when we're struggling in college, to share your spouse, that struggle is beautiful. So don't ever make it a criteria in your mind that I have to finish my college education for me to get married. No. Who said that? Where does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that? Sometimes you may have the discipline before that. So this is one thing to keep in mind. Now, as we try to think of this idea of how to be ready for marriage, there are steps that we need to take to make ourselves ready for marriage. Absolutely. One, my dear brothers and sisters, is piety. To be pious. To have a close relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person, a human being who's pious, who really lives with Allah's presence, will not oppress their spouse. Someone who has a career and is wealthy can oppress you. Someone who has a college education can be arrogant and oppress you. But someone who fears Allah will never oppress you. Never. Think about that. When you're thinking of a potential spouse, are you thinking of that? When you're thinking about yourself being ready, ask yourself, do I have that piety? Do I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Am I a person who engages in deception, lies to other, maybe I cheat, I have sinful habits? If you want to be ready for marriage, work on these habits. The closer you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the better your marital life would be. So that's one aspect. The second aspect of knowing when we are ready for marriage is to be educated about the opposite gender. You know, a lot of the fights and disputes that happen in marriage is because we don't understand the psychology of the opposite gender. Educate yourself about that. It's very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us equal, but we're different. Men and women are different. Biologically we're different. I know a lot of feminists would like to argue this point and reject it, but that's a reality. Just go and see scientific research. Biologically we're different. Psychologically we're different. Even the makeup of our brain is different. This is from a purely scientific perspective. Women have 4 times the number of neurons connecting their right side of the brain to their left side than men. On average, that's the case. That has a lot of psychological implications. By the way, that's why you find that a woman can multitask more than a man. An average man needs to stay focused when they're doing one thing. But have you seen your mothers? Subhanallah. Sometimes you're like, how do they pull that off? Right? They're talking on the phone. They're cooking. They're talking to the children. They're running the house all simultaneously at the same time. I can't do that. When I'm doing something, I need to focus on one thing. You know why they are able to do that? Because Allah gives a mother that capacity. Allah does give a mother that capacity. There's scientific evidence for this. And by the way, guys, have you seen when the sisters, they get together and they're talking, right? All of them are talking and listening at the same time, right? Isn't it the case usually? But for the guys, usually it's not the case. One's talking and the other's listening. We just can't pull that off. But they can. They're all listening and talking at the same time. Well, they have 4 times the number of neurons connecting the right side of the brain to the left side of the brain. The point here is educate yourself on the opposite gender. A lot of differences that we see, a lot of disputes that we see in a marriage is because the husband misunderstands the psychology of his wife. The wife misunderstands the psychology of her husband. And so they take things personally. A lot of sisters complain. And they say, Sayyid, my husband is not loving. And I say, why? Why do you say that? They say, because he doesn't express it. We're sitting and he barely talks. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't reaffirm his love and compassion to me. So I don't feel that, emotional need being fulfilled in my marriage. And then I talk to the husband. He says, Sayyid, I would give up the world for my wife. Does she not see that I wake up at 6 a.m., I go to work, and I come, and I'm working so hard, and I know that she's working hard as well, but I'm practically showing my love for her. See? That's one aspect of the male psychology. A lot of men, the way that they show love to their spouses is by working hard for the family, providing a living for the family. Now in the man's mind, he's like, that's enough. I'm showing her that love. It's practical love. I don't need to, say romantic things to her necessarily. But the wife, she needs to hear that romance. See, if the husband understands that, he will try to fulfill that emotional need. If the wife understands the male psychology, she won't take it personal. She would not take it personal. And so this is something that's very important for us to consider. Especially for those who come maybe from other cultures, maybe from Middle Eastern cultures, in which men are discouraged from showing their emotions, right? From showing their romantic love. It's difficult for them. In a lot of societies, that's the case. So educate yourself on the opposite gender. So that's one way in which we know that we're ready for marriage. Now, a lot of you will mention finance. Let me ask you a question. I'll ask the brothers first and then the sisters. How financially stable should you be to consider marriage? What do you think? And be realistic. Yes, brother.
Having the essential needs to survive, provide shelter, water.
Have the essential needs to survive, shelter, food. So do you necessarily have to have a 2,400 square foot house in order to get married? Why not?
Because it's not gonna make your life better. It doesn't mean that you guys will be together, longer.
It's not going to necessarily improve the quality of your life. What else, brothers? What do you think? How financially stable should you be for you to consider marriage? Give me like examples. What kind of salary should you be getting? What kind of job should you be having? Yes. If you can provide a decent life. But elaborate. What do you mean by decent? Like, give me an example. What is a decent life? What do you say, brothers? To live comfortably. Give me an example. What does it look like to live comfortably? Okay, you're kind of relaxed. You're not running around to make ends meet. You can pay your bills and have a nice house. Yes, Ammu. A decent income, an amount that suits you. Can you give me an example, Ammu? What kind of income are we looking at? Just give me an example. How much? 10,000 per year? MashaAllah, you're very content. But we get the idea. Excellent. Yes, brother. Okay, you don't have to have a big income, but obviously you have to have something, right? You can't just expect your dad to do everything for you. Ahsant. Yes, brother. What's that? Their needs, like their basic needs fulfilled. So their basic needs fulfilled. So the idea that I'm getting here is that the brothers really believe you don't really need to be so financially well off to consider marriage. As long as you have that sense of responsibility, even if you start small, humble, even if you start with an apartment, and then gradually grow, financially advance, you and your wife, that should be good. What's the sister's take on it? And be realistic. I mean, tell me about your parents' mentality too, because that counts, right? A lot of times, parents, they have a say in these issues. Yes, sister. So we have a big concern here. Most of you are understanding that you need to struggle together, and that's beautiful. You know, starting a lavish life with your spouse is probably not the best idea because there isn't that much struggle. And when there isn't that much struggle, the bond is not that genuine. It's more about just comfort and what's convenient for me, right? And that doesn't necessarily give you a healthy marriage. But now we have the issue with our parents. Especially the parents of our beloved sisters. When a father sees that someone has come to propose to his daughter, believe me, these days, the most thing he cares about is his job. Financial security. Are you going to secure the future of my daughter? Are you going to give her a good materialistic life? While a lot of them are concerned about other aspects, maybe the personality, the akhlaq, the decency, definitely these are important, but they're not priority. Do you agree or not? What's the attitude of our parents? Generally, the attitude of our parents, they're more concerned with the financial side of marriage when it comes to their children. How can we change that? How can we change that? If you have a parent who is of this mentality, how can you change it? Yes, sister. If you remind parents that this man is following the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's going to treat you well. He's going to do the best for you. He's going to act responsibly. What if they don't buy that? Because they don't. I know a lot of cases. You'll talk to the parents, in the end they just don't buy that. Say it, I can't, he still doesn't have that career. He's still not making the income that I would like to see him make. I'm not convinced. What do you do when they're stubborn like that? By the way, let's not put parents down, because when they have that mentality, they do care about you, right? They want your well-being. Now, they may have some miscalculations here, but in the end, they do care about you. So what do you do with parents who are stubborn like that? Yes, we had a sister in the back. Yes. Okay, so the young man was showing her parents, give me a couple of months, and I'll demonstrate to you that I am responsible, and I will take those steps that will prove to you that financially I will bring stability to my marriage. Did that work? So the parents, they were okay with that. Okay, so that's one solution here. The young man should tell them, okay, give me a few months, and I will show you that I am hardworking. Any other solutions here? Yes, sister.
I think just to show them that I'm not losing anything. So if maybe, okay, let's say, like for me, for example, I live at home with my parents. As long as I go to another safe home, then it shouldn't matter the size of the home. As long as I have my own car, I pay for that. I would prefer not to lose that when going into a marriage based on bills. So if I can keep my car, then that's something that I would like to keep. If I know that I have food on the table, maybe we'll be buying store brand food instead of, like our luxury brand. But as long as I still have food, then what am I really missing out? And especially if at the end of the day, this is something that God wants, and I'm marrying someone that God has told me to marry.
Very, very good points here. The overall point, my dear brothers and sisters, here is that when it comes to knowing whether you're financially ready for marriage, we have to be realistic, especially, for the brothers, the guys. You have to have something, you have to have some job you're working on, and you're showing your family, your future in-laws that you're responsible, and you do care about that financial aspect. But for some brothers who definitely don't have anything, they're just studying, they have no job experience, it's very impractical for them to go and propose. So just be aware of that. Start small. Start a part-time job just to show them that you're starting somewhere. At the same time, don't think that you have to completely finish your education, have a full-time job with a good salary, then you can consider marriage and propose. That's also wrong. You can be ready before that. So maintain that proper balance. Now going back to one of the previous points that we mentioned about knowing about the opposite gender, let's go to the next one. The next question here. How are men different than women? For those in the back who can't see, men are more emotionally starved. Men can't live without their hookahs. Men are dorkier, and men are from Mars. That's how they're different. Men are more emotionally starved. Okay. That tells you a lot about the men, right? Well, there is a psychological component to that. Men, generally speaking, they don't react or give too much value to emotions. This is something confirmed by science. So, it's very important to know when you're ready for marriage. But as long as you've got the right intention, you're God-fearing, you're working on your habits, and you do have some sort of financial plan for yourself, then you're ready. Yes?
I have a question. So, based on this answer that men are more emotionally starved, would you suggest that a man figure his emotions out before he gets married or after he gets married?
It's important for men before they get married to be aware of their emotional state and to work on it. See, before you go into a marriage, you need to realize that in a marriage there are emotional needs. Be aware of that. Realize that your future wife does have emotional needs, and a healthy marriage is one that fulfills our emotional needs. Be aware of that and work on that. If you're the type of guy who it's difficult for you to show emotions, right, to express your love, work on it. You can change that. Don't wait till after marriage. Before marriage, when you're seriously thinking about marriage, consider that. This is something very important. Now let's move on to the next part of our discussion. Now you're interested in someone, right? And you want to talk to this person. A lot of questions that we get, what are the limitations here, right? How far can I go in talking? I'm interested in this person, but I don't want to cross any red lines. That would, defy the laws of Islamic law. Defy the laws of Sharia. And that's something very important because you want Allah to bless your marriage. So you want to start the halal way. So let's go to the next question. What is inappropriate to say before an engagement? The katb kitab. For those who can't read, you're very smart, mashallah. You're very spiritual, subhanallah. You're very caring, alhamdulillah. And you're very cute, smallah. I like the fact that we have Allah in all of those answers. It means we're mindful of Allah. That's very good. But seriously, what are the lines? Scholars are divided into two groups here. Most scholars at Maraja', they're very strict, I'll just be honest with you. And they will tell you, look, before the engagement, before the katb kitab, you need to avoid anything that's romantic, that's charming, because that's inappropriate. Yes, after the katb kitab, after the engagement, you're comfortable to express your love and emotions. But before that, they're very strict. That's one category of scholars. But today, we are finding a number of scholars, based on one hadith, they say, if you're serious with your intention, you're not just playing around, you're really serious about this particular person whom you want to marry, you have serious intentions, then you can express your emotions appropriately. And the hadith that they cite is that if someone wants to marry and they have serious intentions, if a brother, for example, wants to get married, they can actually see the girl without hijab according to Islamic law. This is before the engagement, right? They could see the girl without hijab because they are serious about marriage. They have the proper intentions. But hey, in the end, you're going to live with this person. And you have the right to see this person. So scholars are saying, if Islam allowed the guy to see the girl without hijab, even though Islam is so sensitive about hijab, then if the guy has serious intentions, it's a given that he can also speak to her, in an appropriate way, of course, not crossing any lines, but to express maybe his care for her, to try to know more about her personality. That's fine. As long as it's appropriate, it's fine. So scholars actually have two takes on this, but it really goes back to your intention. Are you seriously considering marriage, or are you just exploring here? Let's go to the next one. So what are some of the best pickup lines that you'll find over here? A lot of times there are pickup lines, right? It's part of any relationship and how it starts. The first one, I want your feet to be my kids' Jannah. That's one. You are the reason Allah made hijab wajib. The brothers are all laughing. I'd like to be more than just your brother in Islam. And the last one, you remind me of the Kaaba. I could walk around you all day long. Brothers, don't use these pickup lines, please. What's that? Blue and green work every time. But seriously, are pickup lines halal or no before an engagement? What do you think? Let's hear from the sisters and then from the brothers. Be realistic and be honest, right? Don't be a sheikh for me now, please. Be honest and realistic. Yes, sister. So what do you think is inappropriate and what's appropriate? We need to know this. This is something all of our youth experience. And a lot of them, they're sensitive, about Islamic law. They don't want to make any violations. So what's appropriate and what's not appropriate? Remember, this is before the engagement, right? Before the katb kitab. Yes, sister. Can you repeat that? Pickup lines belittle, right? You don't like them. How do other sisters feel about that? Because, let's be honest, when a relationship is about to start, the brothers, they want to impress you, and they might say something like that, just to show you that, they're interested in you. Now, these are just, some examples, right? But what's appropriate and what's not appropriate? Any ideas? Yes, sister. Okay, so the sister is saying, if it's something that you would not say to a complete stranger, then avoid saying it to this potential spouse. Do you agree or disagree with that? What do you say, the brothers? Or is that too strict? You would agree with that? So compliment them, say something nice. The sister raises a very valid point. Basically, if your parents are around, what would you say in their presence to the potential spouse? Whatever you would say in their presence is an indication that that's halal and appropriate. And anything you won't be comfortable saying in the presence of your parents is probably an indication you're crossing some lines. I think that's a pretty good standard to go by. There are other standards, but that's a good standard. Now, you mentioned complete strangers. Well, obviously, with a complete stranger, there's absolutely no connection there, right? So to be more realistic, Just imagine if there's a respected person, not even your parents, a respected member of your community who's with you in that room. What would you say? Anything that you would say? No, you're talking, that's fine. You're showing, your care. You're trying to be professional, honest. Anything you would not say in the presence of another person, whom you respect that person, should be appropriate. Anything you would not is an indication it may not be appropriate. So just keep that in mind. Now, by the way, my dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to share with you something, especially the sisters. Oftentimes, before an engagement, when the brother and the sister are having this emotional connection going, they feel close to one another, they get attached to one another. Now, oftentimes, before the engagement, one of them decides, you know what, I don't want to continue this. This happens a lot. Now, once you got yourself emotionally attached, and now you have to walk away from that relationship, what happens, especially to the sisters? What happens? You're left damaged. You're left emotionally damaged. That's why it's not a good idea to become emotionally attached before the engagement. Once you've decided on getting married, you've done the research. In our previous workshop, we talked about this in detail, right? How do you research? How do you know your spouse potential spouse has the appropriate qualities? Once you've done that, my dear brothers and sisters, don't continue for too long. Because if you continue talking for too long, you will get emotionally attached, you will fall in love with one another, and hey, guess what? What if it didn't work out? What if the parents said no? What if the other person changed their mind? You're going to be left emotionally broken. That's not good for you. That's not good for your future. I know a lot of people, a lot of youth, brothers and sisters, for years and years they emotionally suffer because something did not work out before the engagement. Have mercy on yourself. Don't get too close to one another before the engagement. It's not healthy. So let's go to the next question. How long should you talk before the engagement? Before you know this person's the right person? How long should I talk to them before making the final decision to get married? 1 to 2 years? 1 to 6 months? 1 week? 55 years. Sometimes you need half a century to figure out the person. Seriously, how long should you talk before you're like, you know what? This person's right for me. Let me go for it. Or this person's not right for me. Let me avoid it. So most of you said 1 to 6 months. And I completely agree with that. The blue one, 1 to 6 months. Brothers and sisters, you should not be talking more than 1 to 6 months. It's not healthy, believe me. It will keep dragging and dragging and dragging. And many times the consequences are not that positive. Keep it 1 to 6 months. You're talking to this person whom you're interested in for about a month, 2 months, 3 months. Make a decision. Don't let it drag and drag for a year, 2 years, and 3 years. Have mercy on yourself. The more this drags, the more painful the experience will be. Sometimes there are brothers and sisters, you ask them, okay, do you want to get married? I still don't know. Okay, how long have you been talking to this person? It's been about 2 years now. That's a long time. That's not healthy. Keep it 1 to 6 months on average. Yes, brother. The decision to get married. We're talking about the decision to get married. So you're talking to this person for 2-3 months. That's enough. After 2-3 months, you should make your decision. Okay, this person's good for me. I'll go for it. Go and propose. Go and propose. And you can set a date for the engagement and set a date for the marriage. But to keep this dragging and dragging, it may work sometimes. I'm not saying that anybody who's been talking for more than 6 months they've failed in their attempt, no. But usually it comes with negative consequences. It should not be more than 1 to 6 months. How do you all feel about this? Do you think this is reasonable? Well, most of you voted for that. But 15 of you said 1 to 2 years. Is that the red and the pink? Is that the same? Okay. So, a significant number of you said 1 to 2 years. Why? One of you who chose that, can you explain why you need 1 to 2 years? Yes, brother. That's a very good point. What if you're not ready yet and you need more time? Let's say you're in medical school, you need about a year or two to finish. So you really can't make that decision now, you need more time. That's a very valid scenario. But what I would say about that scenario, if you know in advance you're not ready yet, you need more time, it's a better idea not to start talking to someone. Because when that is dragged, it does come with consequences. I know many, many brothers and sisters with good, pure intentions, in a situation like the one you described, they started talking, getting to know one another. It took about a year or two. And guess what? A lot of them, 50, 60, 70% of them, after a year or two, they're like, you know what? Let's walk out of this. Now you wasted 2 years of your life when it comes to your emotional attachment. Because when you give your heart to someone, brothers and sisters, when you give your heart to someone, that takes a toll on you. That really does. That drains you. And once you're out of that relationship, sometimes you feel so overwhelmed and drained, and it causes depression. So my suggestion would be, if you already know that you're in a state where it's just not practical for you to seriously consider marriage, then I would avoid starting a relationship. It's probably not a good idea. Unless you do start and then you get engaged, that's a better scenario. Where you get engaged, and now Islamically that person is your spouse, and then you give yourself a year. That's practical. But to keep talking a year or two before the engagement is not something that I would consider, generally speaking, healthy. Any thoughts from the sisters about this? Yes.
In that scenario, there's nothing wrong with the woman
There's absolutely nothing wrong in the woman providing, and the best example we have is who? Lady Khadija alayhi salam. But let's be realistic. Your parents will not accept that scenario. You providing, working, he's not working, he's just studying. 90% of your parents are not going to be okay with that. So that's really an ideal scenario, which is okay. It's completely fine. But how do you get your parents convinced? It's possible to convince them, but it requires a lot of effort. You have to lobby and lobby and lobby for them to accept that scenario. Yes, brother. It's possible. And we really do believe in sacrifice. Even though you're struggling and you're sacrificing, you can still introduce marriage to your life. And it does work out. I know a lot of successful marriages that did start that way. So that's one point to consider, my dear brothers and sisters. Just beware of that emotional attachment before you've made that final decision that you want to actually marry this person. Now, one of the biggest challenges that we have today is where to find your spouse. Where do you find them? Let's go to the next question. Let's see some responses here. Where is the best place to find a spouse? NYC retreats? Starbucks? Warren Avenue? Mosque, temple, church? Where is the best place? So most of you said mosques and NYC retreats. A big crisis that our youth have today is they don't know what the proper venue is to get to know a proper spouse. Parents are not helpful. In fact, if your parents know that if you're going to one of these religious programs and there's the potential that you're going to meet someone or somebody's interested in you, chances are they're going to even discourage you. But what parents need to understand, they need to be realistic. If your son or daughter can't meet someone at a mosque, at a retreat, in an appropriate place, where are they going to meet them? They're going to meet them on campus? What, at university, in the lab, in your physics lab? Where are you going to meet the person? Parents expect this wonderful, person who's going to come and propose, who's going to fall out of the sky, an angel. But where? Where do you find a person like that? How is that person going to know your daughter? We know there's Islamic limitations, of course. We know that your family has its dignity and honor. We know that. It's very important. But parents need to be helpful when it comes to offering the proper venue. Now today, a lot of the youth, they're considering these venues. One of them is matchmaking websites. How do you feel about matchmaking sites? Most of the youth and the families are not comfortable with that. Why? First of all, they resemble dating websites. So a lot of our youth aren't really comfortable with that idea or concept. Secondly, imagine how your family are going to take it. So you want to introduce this person to your family and you're interested in this person. And your dad asks you, Baba, where'd you find this person? Oh, I found this person on some matchmaking website. Imagine the looks that you're going to get. Your family's not going to take you seriously. So it's not practical. For a lot of our youth, it's not really a practical solution. So that's not something that really our youth can pursue. That leaves us with appropriate religious events. Retreats, events at a mosque or community center. These programs are actually a good opportunity to get to know a decent youth in our community. I know a lot of families struggle to accept this idea, but that's the best solution that we have. As long as the environment is Islamic, it's appropriate, you've gone there with the good intentions, and these venues also give you some opportunity to observe the person who might you be interested in. Because you want to also observe, right? Sometimes when you go to a retreat and you see brothers and sisters at that retreat, you get an idea of their akhlaq, right? This person, how they react when they're sitting, the questions they ask, the way they walk, the way they carry themselves. That tells you a lot about a person. And sometimes you need that venue, you need that setting to make these observations. Now, in most mosques in the U.S., are completely segregated. The men and the women are segregated. So the parents have to understand this big challenge. So at the mosque, there's complete segregation. At school, university, what kind of environment is that for you to meet a good spouse? So these parents, if they really want to be realistic, where should their sons and daughters meet a good potential spouse? See, you need some sort of interaction. Yes, too much interaction is negative. Too much interaction can lead to the crossing of red lines. But as long as something is appropriate, it's in a good setting, why not? Many, community leaders and scholars today are saying that mosques, Islamic conferences, retreats should be a place where our youth should be given the opportunity to meet one another, to know one another. Those who have serious and pure intentions. In fact, a lot of people that I know in this community, they got to know each other in such events. Whether it was the YMA 20 years ago, whether it was one of the mosques in the Dearborn Heights area, whether it was a conference like the Ummah conference, some other conferences. What's the name of the conference that was a month ago in Chicago? What's it called? The Muslim Group Conference. By the way, the Muslim Group Conference this year, they have matrimonial services. They had to cancel it. Guess why? Guess why they had to cancel it? No, there's a lot of interest in it. No. It got out of hand? Not really. It didn't get out of hand. They didn't have any bad experiences. One of you said it. Parents. Families pressured them. They're like, this is inappropriate. We don't like the image. This is a conference where people come and learn about Islam. What are you doing with these matrimonial services? We're not comfortable sending our daughters there. But see, these parents have made a very big mistake over here. This is, in fact, a great opportunity for the youth to know one another in a good setting, in an Islamic setting, in a good environment. Why deny them that opportunity? So my dear youth, you need to lobby your parents and need to educate them about this point. If they're not going to directly hear from you, have someone advocating. Have someone who's wise, someone whom your parents respect. And they need to understand that they need to support these venues that are allowing our youth to know one another. Yes, brother. Friday night programs, MYC, Muslim Youth Connection. That's an appropriate place. Now, by the way, don't please get this out of hand and go announce in the community that next week, anybody who wants to get married, we have a we have a venue here. Because we have to be concerned about the image too, right? Families are sensitive about the image. And that's a fine line that you have to balance. Give something appropriate, but also a good image, a positive environment. Something that's Islamic and something that's acceptable. So this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that our youth have. They don't have the proper venue supported by their families to meet someone who is decent. What about websites? Social networking accounts. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Is that a good place to find a spouse? Because you could go and see their posts, what they're posting, they're active on social media. How do you feel about this? Yes, brother. Social media can be very deceiving. But what if you go on social media, once you get an idea, then you make some contacts and investigate about that person? How about that? How do the sisters feel about that? The question is social media an appropriate place to find a potential spouse? So for example, you go on someone's Instagram page, their Twitter, their Facebook, and you see that this person is posting good things, right? Healthy things, Islamic things, positive things. So you're interested in the personality of this person. Is this a good idea to start? To find someone? Or no? Why not?
I just think it's really inappropriate if you're signing into DMs.
Well, let's put this scenario. Once you get an idea of this person, then investigate. Contact someone in that community, ask them about this person, and try to get to know this person and their family. Is that a good idea or still not really? Yes, sister. It's not worth the effort, basically. How do other sisters feel about this? Yes. You know marriages that actually work that way. So that's how they started. They got to know one another on social media. How did their families handle that? They were okay with it? Would your families be okay with this if you meet someone on social media? Generally speaking, do you think your family would be okay with it? But how do you know if the person's fake or genuine? That's the concern, right? That's the risk. And your parents do have that concern. How do you know that this is genuine or not? That's the big concern. Yes, sister. It depends where the person came from. My general advice, I'm not saying completely disregard social media and that should never be on your mind. Like the sister said, sometimes it could work. But my suggestion is, if there is someone whom you might be interested in because of what they're posting, before you start a relationship with that person and start talking, investigate. Contact somebody in that community, somebody who knows this person, somebody who's friends with this person, and ask them, tell me about this person. This person's personality looks great on social media, but are they really like that? What kind of a person they are? It's very important for you to investigate, because while there may be some successful stories, some success stories, there are also a lot of stories that failed. I know a lot of people who tried to get to know one another that way. In the end, it caused a lot of pain and emotional suffering. So just be careful and do that research. Yes, brother.
One of the brothers wanted to ask about sliding into somebody's DMs.
Yes. Sliding into someone's DMs. See, it goes back to the point that we discussed previously. Anything that you're saying in those DMs that you would not say in front of your parents or someone respected, avoid saying it. Keep it as professional as possible. If it's kept professional, it should be fine. There shouldn't be any issues. There's one, as we, go towards the conclusion of our discussion, a few points left. One very important point that I would like to share, especially with our dear sisters. And please accept these words with an open heart. One dilemma that we have today is that since there is this expectation that you finish your studies, you get your degree, master's degree, even some families, they think their daughter needs to finish her PhD before she is ready to get married. The more you delay marriage and the older you get in your late 20s, the less opportunities for marriage there will be for you. I'm just being very honest with you. Because what I find in our communities and societies, you will find a lot of brothers, they prefer for their potential spouse to be a younger sister. And if you don't believe me, let's ask here, and please be honest. If you're 28, let's say, and you want to get married, what age, generally speaking, are you looking at for your potential spouse? 24, 25. See that age difference? Would you consider someone who's 28? Generally speaking, would you consider someone who's 28? Less likely. Be honest, right? We just want to be honest. How do the other brothers feel? If you're 28 and you're considering someone to get married to, is it more likely that you're going to marry someone who's 28? Or more likely someone who's a few years younger than that? It depends on the person, but generally speaking, what's the trend that you're seeing in the community? Preference-wise, and what's actually happening out there. Habibi, don't talk to me, don't talk about the Prophet now. We're talking about today what's happening in the community. Let me ask you this question. Do you think a sister who's reached the age of 30 and she's not married yet, she has the same opportunities and chances as a sister who's 23 and 24? Be honest. No. And that's the reality. And it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but that's the reality. So, our dear sisters, you need to make your parents understand this fundamental point. That the older you get, and you become in your late 20s and possibly early 30s, the more difficult it will be to get married. Try to avoid that situation. Parents need to understand that. Today, parents are not getting it. When their daughters in their early 20s, mid-20s, they have a lot more opportunities. But the older that they get, the opportunities get less and less and less. And that's an obstacle. That's a very big obstacle. Parents need to understand that. And you want your own well-being and what's good for you, you have to have these honest conversations with your parents. Now, one stigma that we have in our society, which must change, and here's where, brother, we'll go back to the Prophet and Khadija. There's one stigma. If a brother expresses his interest in getting married, is that looked down upon in the community? Not really. If a sister expresses her interest in marriage, how do people and families view it? It's usually viewed negatively. Oh, she's desperate, she's this, she's that. That's not fair. This needs to change in the community. If there's a sister who wants to get married and expresses her interest in getting married, other sisters have no right to view her negatively and put her down. And usually, by the way, it's the sisters who are putting them down. And it's usually married women who put them down. When subhanAllah, they were in that state one day, and now, I don't know for whatever reason, they don't understand it. That's why a lot of sisters are actually shy to express their interest in getting married. They're at the age of 25, 26, 27, 28. They're just waiting, right, for someone to show up. And you find them pretty quiet about this. Because if they say something to their parents, to their family, to their friends, it's looked down upon. This needs to be changed. One of the most beautiful marriages in the history of humanity started with the woman expressing her interest in marriage. And that was Lady Khadija alayhi salam. Did the Prophet tell her that's inappropriate? What are you doing in conservative Arabian society expressing your interest to get married to a man? No, the Prophet took that offer because she was qualified. And this stigma needs to be changed. Next time you see someone stigmatizing a sister for expressing her interest to get married, step and do something about that. This is inappropriate, and this is making many, many sisters lose opportunities. It's completely okay for a sister to express her interest in getting married and to talk to others about this. Talk to your parents, friends, wise community members, but people whom you trust, of course. People who care about your reputation and dignity. And you go to them and you let them know that, I do want to get married. Introduce someone to me. Tell me if there are some good families, if there are good brothers who are interested in marriage. To introduce you to some families. That's completely okay, and it should be okay. So this is something that I really, really want you to keep in mind, because that needs to change in a lot of our communities. Now, one very important point over here, my dear brothers and sisters. By the way, before we go to this point, let's go to our next Kahoot question. Can we have the next one? So, top reason why marriage is being postponed these days. What do you think the top reason is? There are a number of reasons. So, fear of rejection, finances, parents, enjoying life before becoming permanently miserable. The green one? Yeah? Okay, so most of you say finances. That also tells us, about how important finances are when it comes to getting married. Yes, brother?
I would think that fear of rejection would have to do with finances, though.
Okay, the brother is saying fear of rejection has to do with finances. Sometimes you fear getting rejected because you don't have that financial stability to get married. Yes, in fact, that's a big factor. By the way, speaking of fear of rejection, that's a very, very important point for a lot of people. A lot of brothers, when they know they're ready for marriage and they're responsible and they can make that commitment, they don't go forward. They don't go and propose. And I ask them why. They're like, we fear getting rejected. Because rejection does take a toll. I've known brothers, they got rejected once or twice, that's it. They put marriage off the table for 5-10 years. Brothers and sisters, you need to understand and realize that being rejected is part of everyday life. It's fine. It's not the end of the world if you get rejected. Be prepared for a rejection. Sometimes you will get rejected. I know a lot of people, they fall into extreme depression. Some people actually commit suicide after getting rejected a few times. Be prepared. That's fine. It's not the end of the world if you get rejected. Don't let that discourage you from passing an opportunity. If there is an opportunity, go for it. Be strong. In fact, if you can handle a rejection and come out strong out of it, you'll be a strong person in society. Tomorrow at job, in your professional world, you can handle difficulties. In fact, that's a great opportunity for you to work on yourself and your self-confidence. But rejection is very painful. It's very painful. But if you're prepared, you can make it easier. Yes, brother? Yes, the Imam ﷺ says opportunities are like clouds. Take them before they pass. Because they pass like the passing clouds. Take an opportunity. I know a lot of brothers who have passed on very good opportunities because of the fear of rejection, or because they were rejected once or twice. Even if you've been rejected once, twice, 3 times, that's fine. It's part of life. Life is not always going to treat you the way that you want. Tomorrow at work, you're going to have a proposal, it might get rejected. Tomorrow in your family life, you might want something and you've experienced rejection. It's fine. Never give up. Look at our role models, the prophets and imams. Their society rejected them. The prophet was rejected in Mecca. They kicked him out of Mecca. They wanted to assassinate him. That's fine. A believer will get rejected. Whether spiritually, religiously, socially, from many different perspectives, that's completely okay. Don't allow the fear of rejection to stop you. You could be passing on great, great opportunities. Go for it. If you think this is the appropriate person, you've done your research, you have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go for it. Don't let anything like that stop you. The final point before we conclude, my dear brothers and sisters. The brothers mentioned that finances is very important. A lot of you consider finances as the main reason why marriage is postponed. A lot of it has to do with the wedding and the engagement and all the spending that's involved. On average, how much do people spend on their weddings? Does somebody know? Like, give me an estimate. Average. 20,000, is that the average or more? 30,000? 40,000? Let's say the average is 20 to 30. Is that reasonable? Okay. The average is $20,000 to $30,000. My dear brothers and sisters, you're all valuable, you're all kings and queens, inshallah. But is it worth it to squander $20,000, $30,000 on one night? You know the Prophet ﷺ, when the engagement happened between Imam Ali and Lady Fatima, Salama, the wife of the Prophet, she came to the Prophet and she told him, Ya Rasulullah, Imam Ali is now ready for the wedding and to move with Lady Fatima. This is probably a month after the engagement, or maybe 20 days after the engagement. The engagement was in Dhul Qa'dah. The wedding was in Dhul Hijjah, 20 to 30 days after. The Prophet said, why doesn't Ali come to me and tell me that he's interested in taking Lady Fatima to her house and have the wedding? Salama said, Ali ibn Abi Talib is so decent. He's so polite. He's shy. He's embarrassed to come and say that to you. He told Salama, Ayman, according to some hadiths, was also there, bring Ali. Let me talk to him. So Imam Ali alayhi salam comes to the Prophet. The Prophet tells him, Ali, do you have interest in starting your marital life, moving with my daughter Fatima, and have the wedding? The Imam says, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I'm ready for that. Do you know what the Prophet did? This is the great messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has the universe at his disposal. He's a role model for us. When I consider myself a Muslim, I follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet said, Ali, tomorrow night is the wedding. Some of us spend 7 months, 8 months, 1 year planning for that fancy wedding. The Prophet, it took him a day to plan for it. That's it. Tomorrow's the wedding. He invited the companions. They came. They had a meal. Some of the Ansar, they contributed. The Prophet himself from some of the money of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He himself made some dessert and dates with his own blessed hands. And they had the most beautiful wedding. I know parents, especially the parents of our sisters, they want to have a fancy wedding for their sister. It's my daughter, it's the most important day, of her life. It should be a very good, classy wedding. We need to change that mentality, my dear brothers and sisters. Because I'll tell you, one thing that discourages brothers from coming forward is that wedding. Because right now, they don't have that $20,000, $30,000. Or if they do, they're saving it for their marital life. And that's not fair. And believe me, a fancy wedding, wallahi will not guarantee you happiness in the future. In fact, the fancier the wedding, the way I've seen it, the less successful those marriages. And the more humble weddings are those that last longer. Because Allah puts barakah in humbleness. Allah puts barakah. Do you want the barakah from Allah? The saddest thing that I see is that we have beautiful brothers and sisters, couples getting together on their wedding, and they want the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they start with the disobedience of Allah. Have you seen our weddings? What happens in our weddings? Dabka, music, singing, dancing, men and women in the same hall. Does that please Allah? Sayyid, it's my only day. Don't ruin my fun. Come on. It's my most important day. Habibi, that's the point. It's your most important day. But you want to start that day with the disobedience of Allah. And you expect Him to bless you? Imagine you go to someone and you're like, bless me, but the day I start, I'm going to disobey you. If you want the barakah from Allah, have Islamic weddings, my dear brothers and sisters. Don't feel culturally pressured. Your parents might pressure you. Your friends might pressure you. You have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with you. Start your marital life with the obedience of Allah. See how Allah will take care of you. So one dimension of that is not to be extravagant in spending on the wedding. Tell your parents, go to your mom and dad and tell them, look, I want a humble wedding. I don't want anything fancy. I don't want it. I reject it. Let your siblings advocate on your behalf. Send your friends. Talk to someone. Pressure them. You guys are smart. When you want something, you can get it done with your parents. Trust me. Lobby them. Put pressure on them. Especially the sisters. Make it very clear to your parents that you're not interested in fancy weddings. It's not a priority for you. Don't ever let a fancy wedding waste a good opportunity. Because when you live with people in the community, you see the struggles. I've known many, many decent brothers who wanted to propose, but because they didn't have that 30,000 readily available, they couldn't get married. And that sister lost an excellent opportunity. That's injustice. So sisters, you need to lobby your parents. They need to understand that this is not fair. Let's see if we have any more Kahoots, and then we can end, inshallah. Do we have anything else, or this is the last one? Okay, I think I've got the right person. What next? Do a khira, istikhara. Ask for a DNA. Go and propose. Do an EQ test on them. Let's look at the results. A lot of people ask about khira, istikhara. I'll comment on that a couple of minutes. Okay, so 11 said, do a khira, istikhara. 18 said, go and just propose. My dear brothers and sisters, should you consider khira, istikhara on marriage? Who says yes? Why, Brother Rida? Why would you say yes? No, that's something some scholars believe in that, so it's fine, but just explain why. It's a major decision in your life. Okay, so the brother is for istikhara. Who else is for istikhara when it comes to making a decision on marriage? Yes, sisters in the back. You're for it? Do istikhara. If you have a reason. That's a good point. Sisters, any ideas? Because a lot of times the brother comes, he proposes, and you're thinking, should I do istikhara to accept the proposal? Yes. So you should do the istikhara just to be confident that you're making the right choice. Yes, sister. That's a very valid point. Yes, sister? You shouldn't put yourself in that situation where you're obligated. So actually, when it comes to the istikhara, scholars are divided into 3 camps. Yes, 3. So some of them say no. Don't take istikhara for marriage. That's their idea, their opinion. That's it. Someone comes and you think the person's right, just go for it. If you don't think the person's right, don't go for it. No need for istikhara. Then you've got the other camp, to the opposite direction. They really believe that you should never make a decision without istikhara. Like the brother said, this is the most important decision in your life, right? And you may have done your research, but you just don't know what's going to happen. So consult the Quran. Have someone qualified to do the istikhara for you to give you a sense of direction. And then the third camp, I lean towards the third camp. The third camp of scholars, they tell you, look, do your research. Some people, before they do their research, oh, there's a marriage proposal. Yalla, get the Quran out. Don't rush. If there's a proposal, investigate, research, ask about this person, their akhlaq, their history. And if you feel, if all indications are that this person is probably a good person, tawakkal ala Allah. Have reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and go for it. Now if you see alarming things about this person, red flags, khalas, just avoid that situation. But sometimes you've done that, you've done the research, you're still hesitant, you're just stuck. There's something inside of you that is making you hesitate. You tried researching further, you tried to consult others, you tried to think about it, you're still hesitant inside. In that case, it's appropriate to take a khira. Because khiras are when you've done your job, you've done your research, and you're still hesitant. Then it's okay to do the khira. So I would actually recommend that if you're still stuck and hesitant and you just want something to get you out of that hesitation, go for it. Khira has barakas. A lot of people, like you mentioned, you've had personal experiences with khiras. Sometimes they come spot on. And even those times that You don't think they came spot on? You never know. You never know what's good for you in the future. I remember once I was in New York, a brother came to me and he complained. He's like, Sayyid, recently, either he took the khira or somebody took the khira for him. I don't know. He's like, I'm very disappointed. I took what the khira said, and this is about 2 months after the khira, and I regret it. It was a bad decision. Why would Allah do this for me? I told him, first of all, you can't blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. And then I explained to him why. Then I told him, be patient. You can't judge after 2 months. You don't know, maybe Allah saved you from something else. Maybe one day you'll realize that. About 3 years after that, I went to that same community in Albany, New York, the state capital. The person was almost in tears. He told me, Sayyid, after 3 years I understood why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me that direction. And I'm glad I took this route. That other route, now I discovered, would have been a disaster for me. But I didn't know at the time. See, sometimes you don't know, right? So don't quickly judge when you sometimes see a result of the khira not the way that you anticipated. So my final advice about this khira, do your research, consult, act responsibly to find out if this person is good or not. But if you are just stuck and hesitant at the end, it's okay. You don't have to do a khira, but it's completely appropriate for you to do a khira. Any final questions, thoughts before we conclude? Because we have the pizza and the refreshments waiting for us. Yes, sister. If someone does a khira on your behalf, right? You've talked about everything, you're ready to get married. Suddenly, mommy surprises you and she's done a khira, even without your knowledge. Those khiras are not valid. Because the khira has to come from the intention of the person who is affected by the khira. See, I can't take khiras on behalf of other people. Imagine if I take a khira tonight, and I go to one of the brothers, I tell one of the brothers, Ali or Hassan, that job that you're working, quit it tomorrow. Why? What happened? I took a khira on it. That's not valid. You have to make the niyyah and the intention. So if parents are surprising their children with khiras, that's not appropriate. It's not applicable. It must be with your consent and with your niyyah. You have to make the niyyah. Yes. What a mother can do is to make a niyyah to stop your marriage. If she thinks it's bad for you for whatever reason, then she can act on her own and try to talk you out of it, try to convince you. That's fine. But for her to do a khira on this marriage and then she's like, I did a khira and this is a bad marriage, that's not acceptable. You have to do the khira, or she can do it on your behalf after you've made the niyyah and intention. So that doesn't work that way, and parents need to be educated about that. Such khiras are completely invalid, and they're not applicable. And even if a parent does that, just try to tell them that this is not valid. Yes, sister. Other than the khiras, what about dreams? I honestly would not give weight to dreams. Dreams in itself has a very detailed discussion on it. I'm not saying that there aren't any significant dreams. We do sometimes have significant dreams. But I would not base such an important decision on any dream. Even if the dream seems clear to you, it's a fascinating dream, it's an important dream, and you think there are a lot of signs, I would not base such an important decision on dreams. Generally speaking, I would advise against that. If you have a dream that you're concerned about, maybe you find disturbing, just pay sadaqah. That will protect you from any danger, if there is any danger coming your way. So don't really focus too much on dreams. I would not advise that. A lot of people do, and for them the most important thing is the messages they get in their dreams. But from an Islamic perspective, a lot of the dreams that we see don't necessarily have significance behind them. So don't think that you're, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam who had that dream, or Prophet Yusuf and the story of the king in that dream. It's generally not the case. But if there's a disturbing dream that you saw, just pay sadaqah, pay charity, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you if there's anything negative. So that's what I would say on dreams. Any final thoughts, remarks? Yes, brother. So if two people from the opposite gender are texting one another constantly, there is flirting involved, they're spending hours and hours till 3 and 4 a.m., which is the time for Salatul Layl, to talk one another, generally speaking, that isn't inappropriate. Any flirting before engagement is haram. We have hadiths about that. I don't want to scare you, but the hadith says, if you flirt with the member of the opposite gender, you will get locked 500 years per word. Of course you can repent. Don't freak out, guys. You can repent. Allah is merciful. The hadith says, "Man fakaha imra'atan la tahillu lah." If you speak in a flirtatious way to a woman, not even just flirting, but like in a way that's too charming, right? To a woman that's not halal to you before the katb kitab, before the engagement, the hadith says, the person will be denied the fragrance of paradise. Number 2, this person will get locked up for each word 500 years. And we're talking about the years of the akhirah. Don't ask me what those years are. I don't know. But of course there's room for repentance. So that's an indication this is not appropriate. Don't let it get that far, my dear brothers and sisters. That's it. You've talked to this person appropriately. Be professional. You think the person has good akhlaq. You've done research. You've asked their friends about their qualities. You've asked their family members. You think the person is good? Go for it. For the brothers, be a man. Go through the front door and propose. Don't let it drag and drag and drag like that. So the scenario that you described is something that I would advise against. At 3 a.m., either be sleeping or Salatul Layl or seek knowledge. That's what the hadith says, by the way. You should not have a sleepless night except in 3. Either you're worshipping Allah, ibadah, Salatul Layl, or you're working. Let's say some people have night shifts and that's just the job that they can get. That's fine. Working is always blessed in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, seeking knowledge. You're reading, you're studying. That's something good. Anything other than that is to be avoided. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to have this discussion. Inshallah, we all learned from one another. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. For those of you who are not married yet, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with a wonderful spouse, inshallah. And for the blessings of everyone, let's give you all a very loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, let's go to the dining hall for some refreshments and pizza. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.